Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome to this Saturday Night Soul Session live with me, LC. I'm so grateful and truly honored just to be here, sitting in this space, sharing this time and this energy with all of you and anyone that'll watch this video on the replay for whenever you watch it. I just got really deep in like prayer and meditation before I came into this video, and I'm going to tell you what, sitting in that space and just really sitting and connecting in a space of gratitude and love, especially for all of you. And I don't know who all is here or who will watch this or who will watch this whenever, but the human energy and the things that we share in common, which is this distinct need to love and to be loved and to understand what it means to be in connection with other human beings, is truly a gift. And sitting in that space and really connecting with that before I come here to do this with you is honestly one of my favorite parts of this entire thing. And I haven't always been able to be the type of human being that could do that or do this. And so I'm just so grateful to be sitting here with you on a Saturday night and just sharing this time with you. And so, tonight I wanted to build off of what the amazing Martin John Garcia and myself talked about last week, which is identity. The addiction to identity and how we're all truly chasing the same high. There was so much that came out of that amazing video. And if you haven't watched it, please go back and watch it. It's there. It's amazing. And, I'm still unpacking and doing so much around that. But I wanted to build off of that this week. And so I really wanted to talk about this week the positivity of identity and when to grow and when to let go. There's so many times that we create our own suffering in our lives when we want to hold on to what we believe is us. And we believe that it is external sources and life that's happening to us that's creating suffering. But many times we are being called to grow and let go and move with life in our growth. One of the points we made last week was that, there's no way on earth that if we got to sit down and plan out our lives, that we would ever have arrived at these places. We could have never thought to bring ourselves to these places that we are in our lives. And that would be such a tragic shame to me if I were not sitting in this space sharing it with you. So I'm so grateful you're here. But for anyone and all of you that know me, we may talk about some of this and we may go in a completely different way. When everyone's energy shows up here together and I feel connected and we're connected to each other, messages come through and that's what we give. So let me say some hellos. What's up, Pam V? 9 years, 3 months, and 18 days free from all legal and illegal substances. What? Oh, I love you, Pam V, and you have been such an amazing asset to this beautiful, amazing community. I see some Facebook users, and if you haven't given StreamYard your permission to use your name, then I can't see who you are. But I see 5 years and 4 days of freedom from meth and crack today. Hot damn. I love it. I love it. Congratulations. You are truly a warrior. My beautiful friend and soul sister, Pamela Topjian, and my soul brother down there, my Chip Dip, is here tonight. Let's send Chip our prayers and loving energy as he's just gone through a surgery himself. And they are two of my favorite people that are just walking the earth. I don't even know how I am so blessed to get to share life with those two human beings. And my sister Pamela has written a beautiful and amazing book called I Didn't Come This Far to Only Come This Far, and you can pick that up right here on Amazon. You can type in Pamela Topjian, her name, because she has so much available. She's got amazing original art journals and just a lot of stuff with original art, but This is the type of things that you get to do when you step outside of the identities that hold us back. You know, Pamela herself was a child who grew up in severe poverty, and, you know, that comes with an identity. And then, you know, a profession of nursing that comes with its own identities. But the only reason this book exists and this woman is such a part of my life is because she released her hold to the identities of what she thought life and happiness and success was supposed to be, and opened herself to really experience what happiness truly is. And happiness, y'all, is an inside job. So pick this book up. I guarantee you will be happy you did. It will absolutely sow into your life. And I've got another book you guys have seen me talk about a little bit, and I'm going to do a lot more with this book when I'm actually done reading it, because it's such an amazing book, working in partnership with God, by the amazing Lou Myers. He's an amazing friend. Just a blessing in my world. Just one of the most accepting and loving and connected human beings. And he's written this book that it's about his life, and it gives great strategies on letting go of identity and the rules and who we think we are and who we become when we truly embrace our own divinity. It comes as such a shame that not so much, well, let's just say, I'm just going to say what I want to say. It comes as such a shame that we have been so conditioned to believe that divinity lives outside of us, and that there's so many things we have to do to feel close to God. Now, God is whoever, you know, is whatever in whoever you know that to be. But one of the greatest identities that I ever broke away from, or allowed to fall away so that I could truly know that in which is my higher power, God, of the way I understand God, and just to see so much of that I was missing by the way that I was conditioned to know God. I didn't know God at all, and I certainly didn't know myself. And so when I read books about people's story that have found the love in their lives, love for themselves, the love to move past their previous definitions that were defined by their pain and trauma, then I'm all in. And that's the kind of book I want to read. I also want to let you know that here at Sanity is a Full-Time Job, you can pick up these amazing workbooks. And you know, if you're in new recovery, or you're in like a new mental health rediscovery process, these are great little books that come with very short little anecdotes and instructions and different things, and a great little worksheet that comes right on the other side of that. And right now, for Recovery Soul Food listeners, you can get a 15% discount by going to Sanity is a Full-Time Job and typing in Recovery Soul Food. But Gregorio Lewis has many, I've got all three of these workbooks: Surviving the Impossible, A Guide to Better Days, and this newest book, which is the original Peer Support Recovery and Coping Skills Workbook and Curriculum. Long title, but I don't know about y'all, but I love growing. I love getting to know growth, and I love getting to know myself in ways that I'm a warrior, and that I have gone and moved past the old ways that I defined myself, the identities that I lived by. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about how to know when to grow and when to let go. So I'm so grateful that you all are here with me. I'm so grateful for those of you that'll watch this on the replay. And I am super ready to get into this Saturday Night Soul Session live with me, LC. So let's go. What's up, Soul Warriors? Thank you for being here tonight. It's good to see Joshua Saunders in the house, Alicia Lee. And I think that this Facebook user I'm seeing is Brandy Conklin. So if that's you, raise your hand. Thank you for being here, little soul sister. Congratulations on all that you have accomplished. I'm grateful you're here. And to be honest, Christine Williams, what's up? What's up? What's up? It's to be honest, I don't really know where you give StreamYard your permission. I know that's something they tell me to tell you. So I don't actually know where you do that. But either way, if that's you, if this is who I'm talking to, Brandy, raise your hand and I'll use your name from here on out tonight. But thanks y'all for being here. You know, I think that the topic of identity is so close to me because I have just seen the way I have traveled through my life, and I have seen the way that I have built and defined myself so many times through identity. And let me, for those of you that didn't see last week's video, let me just run through a few things that we talked about. Thanks, Christine. Let me just talk about a few things that we talked about last week. But first, I want to start with my own personal definition of identity. So for me, it is a tangible title or set of standards or beliefs that we believe define us. You know, identities can be blessings and curses all at the same time. And we'll get into this part later. But last week we talked about what identity is, how it plays different roles in our lives. We talked about some of the dangers of holding tightly to identities and how the attachment to the identity is what creates the suffering. And one of the biggest takeaways of last week is the fact that your value exists regardless of your current identity. And I have this note that I believe this should be the focus of tonight, in fact. And this week I wanted to talk about the positivity within embracing identity, and also, again, how to know when to grow and when to let go of an identity. You know, when we hear people, a lot of cliches right now, when we hear people say, let go of what no longer serves you. The majority of that is an identity that we have embraced and been living in. So for the recovery community, a lot of that is the identity that surrounds addict. You know, when you think of the word addict, and especially when you think of yourself as an addict, you know, what does that, just that expression, conjure up within you? Because there are a set of standards that go with being an addict. And at some point in our lives, within our addiction, we did what all human beings do. We kind of flipped the script in our mind and embraced that identity, because the suffering comes in when we want something so different. And a lot of us, maybe I'll speak for myself personally, a lot of what kept me out there using and escaping through, you know, the avenue of addiction and substances was that I couldn't live up to what I was told success was. I felt very ruined by the abuse that I suffered early in my life. I felt very ruined by feeling so different on the inside, you know, not matching and everything that people said girls were supposed to be and what boys were supposed to be and all of this stuff. You know, I felt that I was already damaged goods, you know, out the gate. And so when I was out in using substance, and I started doing the things that come along with the getting and the maintaining of a substance addiction, you know, that shame was weighing and bearing so deeply on my soul that I had to make this survival instinctual flip. And so I grabbed onto that identity of being an addict. And I kind of, and Martin and I talked a little bit about this last week. You kind of flip around and say, well, people that don't use, they don't know how to have fun. Or I'm just living my life. I'm embracing my life. I'm doing what I want. I'm living out here free in the world. And God knows, addictions aren't living free. But it's those things that we embrace to give ourselves a bit of relief, and sometimes it's like by default. It was by default for me. Well, if this is the best I can do, this is the best I can do, and I'm going to go all in at it. Because to be honest, being, in active addiction was the best. I mean, I was so good at it. I found something that I was so utterly good at. And it was already taking all of my time and all of my effort. And so I embraced that. I embraced the lifestyle of being a thug. I embraced the lifestyle of, believing that, I was living this life that I was destined to live. You all have heard me. If you've seen me at all, you know that you've heard that I lived within the identity of believing I was God's little joke. And I think about that now, and it's sad that I lived beneath the umbrella of that identity for so much of my life. But it no longer causes me suffering because I have let go of that identity. And when we talk about how to know when to let go of an identity, I think we first have to begin to talk about some of the positive aspects of holding identity. When I came into recovery, and this is my first time in recovery. I have taken many, stabs at clean and sober in my past, but I never understood that there was a healing aspect to truly becoming free of substance addiction. And the healing process doesn't end when we put down the substance, because we have many other places in our lives where we are still living under the influence of our own identities and our own other types of addictions. Because a lot of times what we see and what we've experienced is, well, I'll put down this substance, but if I don't do any inner work, then I'm going to pick up something else. Because that was my major addiction, was more of anything. Self-destructiveness was my addiction. I was addicted to just hurry up and get this life over with. Hurry up, So I was addicted to, putting myself in dangerous situations. I was addicted to, I was even addicted to listening to songs. I was addicted to suffering. So I would listen to music that would cause me great pain and suffering. My thoughts were completely just focused at all times on all things that had hurt me. And I believed that's who I was. And so when I finally came to this place of, man, I cannot take this clean, sober, clean, sober, clean, sober, clean, sober thing. And I wasn't going to give up my coping mechanism just to be an old, just to keep doing these same patterns in my life, because I knew I'd always come back to it. If I did not change the way I was thinking and living, I was just going to be back there in another 6-7 months. Maybe I'd garner a few years. But would I ever truly become different? And something within me knew that I had to learn how to believe different about myself, about my world, about my connections, and about my past. And in coming into that, I had to embrace an identity of healing, of recovery warrior. I had to become a full-out warrior. And a lot of you that have been with me since the very, very beginning of my showing up here like this know that the word warrior was always so close to me, because that was the identity that I had to truly embrace. And it was one of the greatest and most positive identities that I had ever embraced in my life. And it got me through days when I didn't want to fight that hard. It got me through times where I just wanted to go back. I just wanted to end the struggles, because as I was in active addiction, I believed I couldn't handle life. Oh, yes, Lee. We do become who we think we are. What's up, my brother, Lee Justice? Shirley Martinez. I just believed, that this was who I was. And so embracing that warrior mentality meant that I got to build this new bar to live through. And I started being able to focus on different things in my world that would help me move through the times that I'm telling you I didn't want to fight that day. And there were many days in those very early times that, literally, I had to hold on to my bedpost and just remind myself second by second by second by second that I could do this, that I was fighting for something, that I had to get this done because I just didn't want to go back there anymore. And I often say that identity of can't handle life, addicted, escape, this is too much, followed me. It lived with me truly through those first couple years in recovery. And it wasn't all perfect. It wasn't. But it was perfect for me. It was a recovery process. And I want to tell you, one of the lowest vibrating emotions that we can live in, or even let ourselves spend any time in, is shame. Now, everything around us is vibrating. Everything around us is vibration. Most of it's just vibrating at such a fast pace, it looks solid. Now, I know I'm not going to get way far out there, so y'all don't have to worry. But I'm just saying, our thoughts and our feelings create energy. Our emotions create energy. It's why we attract things back to us. And many things that are happening in our world and our reality right now are just a mirror of our own vibration. And so, knowing that, I had to learn that being shameful about my process was not helping me get to the place that I wanted to get. Ultimately, I wanted to be free. I wanted to know that I could go through life. I wanted to know that I could make it through things and not always go back to escaping through substance or habit. I didn't always want to turn on myself. And I say all that about that whole warrior mentality. And there was so much more to it, more than just, fighting through those days. I really had to be focused on, I was really focused on my son and not wanting my stuff to bleed onto him, and to know that one day he too would escape his pain through substance, because, it's dangerous out there. We all know that. There's probably not any of us sitting here that haven't lost someone to the disease of addiction and relapse. There's probably not one among us that haven't experienced that. And I just didn't want to think of my son going there. So there were a lot of components to that. But embracing that identity is what helped me get there. Now, as I fast forward and have grown in so many ways and done so much inner work, I like what Brent Riles said. Fighting didn't work for me. I had to surrender. See, I like that, because I came to a point where I realized that the fighting kept me in an energy of always being at a defense, always holding on. And I want to tell you something that I've really, really learned, especially in doing what I do here with you guys, with the podcast, with the shows that I used to do, the talks I used to give, and just my own inner work and inner healing, I have learned that in energizing, in staying so connected to my addiction, that part of my addiction, I did not really truly realize how much I was energizing that. And just staying in that fight mode of always being, keeping my guard up, not up for relapse. That I was energizing relapse more than I was energizing the fight or being free. And for me, freedom was my ultimate goal. And one of the things that I would ask you all today is, what is the ultimate goal for your recovery process? Maybe not just your freedom from, substance addiction, but your recovery process as a whole. Because again, recovery continues after we get to the place where we no longer feel called or moved or tempted to go back to substance. I can honestly say that I'm getting close to having 10 years in recovery, and substance is not what crosses my mind or comes into my awareness at this point. But it doesn't mean that there aren't other self-destructive actions that don't rise up on me. Because there are still identities that are living inside of me. There is still a scared child living within me. There is still that part of me, that identity of myself that says vulnerability is for suckers and I'm not going to do it. Even though I do this with you all here and it's very vulnerable. This is great therapy for me, by the way. There is this ultimate place of freedom from suffering that is truly what drives me. And I ask you that as well for your recovery process. What is your ultimate goal? Like, what is it you want to have through this process? Because having that out into the forefront of my mind and in the forefront of my energy always helps me continue to go. My son is up in the world and he's grown now and he's out in the world, and you all have heard me openly talk about that, he is closer to substance use addiction right now than I wish he was. He's not, using himself, but he still has his own escapes and addictions, and a lot of it comes in places like in things like codependency, online gaming. There are a lot of ways, in unhealthy ways, that he is escaping in his life. But he is very much close to that world of substance addiction as well. And, I wish it were different. But I also know and have come to realize and surrender to the fact that this is his journey. So, I think I say all that because I started it out talking about shame and what a low vibrating emotion shame is to, if you're carrying shame within your identity, realize that shame within itself is an identity. And that if you are trying to live a world around an identity of being someone who lives with shame, because so we're taught that to be apologetic, to be sorry, means I gotta be guilty. And guilt over and over and over and over again is planting the seed that eventually blossoms the flower of shame. A belief is simply a thought that is thought over and over and over again. It is a seed that is planted, watered, and grown. And, we can grow up weeds, or we can grow up, the things that we hope for. And so wherever shame lives in your life today, take a look at that. Don't be afraid to take apart the emotions that you're feeling, because a lot of this doesn't even belong to you. What I found when I started taking apart identities in my life was just how many of the beliefs belonged to me and how many didn't. How many came from someone else? How many came from how I was raised, when I was raised, what someone else's beliefs about success was? Because you see, I was living in shame because I didn't feel like I lived up to what my grandparents told me success was. And so every time I tried to do things their way and I didn't follow my own heart or my own bliss, I tried to follow what other people told me to do because I didn't trust myself, then I would never live up to that, and that in turn produced shame in me. And I believed I was a failure. And even once those old thoughts aren't with you anymore, that I wasn't just living in that space, that I was, living my life, that identity of shameful failure still did live within me. And we cannot live past the identity that we create for ourselves. So when we embrace the identity of shameful failure, until we make a conscious choice and unpack that, we can't live past the boundaries of that. And that's the same that when we live under the identity of addict, until we get to that place where we make a conscious choice of, hold up, man, I cannot keep going like this. I want to live a different way. Until we get to that point, we cannot live outside of the boundaries of what addict is. And so, for me, in my life, even to this day, yes, Shelley, it's a learning process and a journey. I try to love every minute of the journey, every minute of it. Even the places that don't seem to be going right, because they are going right. See, many times when we ask out for something, we have the idea of the package it should show up in. And when it doesn't show up in that package, we don't see it as the blessing that it is. But within every opposition awaits a moment of opportunity. And so what we put out, in our emotional space is what comes back to us. And so many times there is such a blessing waiting within that opposition. And so we're so quick to jump in and say, life is challenging me. This is not fair. And what happens? What's up, Tori? What happens if we close ourselves off to the very answer to our prayer? So I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit. My wife and I had been, wanting a new start. We wanted a new place. Oh, Missy, we wanted a new place. And we had no idea, and we were learning about stuff like law of attraction and manifestation and all that. And we'd have this little ritual where we would just stand and look at the stars when we take our little dog for our last walk at night. And we would just think about, how we wanted our life to be. And we were doing okay. My wife was coming out of her depression. She was doing well. We were financially good. I mean, we were good. We were in a good place, but we wanted a new start. We knew we needed to have a place. We needed a new place to live. We needed a new start. We wanted to be somewhere else, closer to my mom. And so we'd stand out under the stars and we would just pray for this new home. Well, in the way that it turns out, we went to stay on this amazing resort island that we work on here where we live, and we went to stay over there for a week to let some long time needed maintenance happen in our apartment, and they ended up ruining our apartment and all of our stuff. And so we left with and only packed to be gone for a week, and turns out we never got to go back there. And it really looked like it was unfair to us. And if I wanted to take it apart and get in that energy, I could say, man, it was so unfair. But the fact of it is, we had been asking for a new start. And many times we've got to be pushed or propelled out of our comfort zone to embrace those answered prayers. And I was so grateful that I had been doing so much inner work. And had I not been in my recovery process and had not continued to keep growing, I would not have been able to see the fact that we were in the midst of greatness. We were in the midst of a blessing. Now, let me tell you that a blessing doesn't mean that it's rainbows and unicorns the whole way through. There was a lot of learning in there because I wanted to be pissed off. I wanted to be so mad. And in the same moment of that anger, I also remembered that, wait a minute, man. You got to walk what you talk. You've been asking for something new. You've been asking for a new start. Yeah, but we wanted a new house. We didn't want to just be homeless. Now all of a sudden we're basically homeless. We ended up getting to live in this amazing house on this amazing island for a year during the peak states of COVID. And it was truly amazing. But we learned so much about ourselves during that time, and I learned so much about how to break away from an identity. And exactly, Pamela, the tower. We had a tower moment, and they kept coming. Because not only were we asking for a new start, but in order for that new start to stick and to last, we had to be different people. And because my wife and I had been so separate for the past 7 years, her in the deepest, darkest depression of her entire life, me in recovery for the first time, trying to raise a teenage son with my skills, and God knows was not cut out to be Father of the Year. But I was in my healing process. She was in her depression. Our son was just begging to be seen. And, we had to become different people. Because how many times have we asked for something or prayed for something, it come, and then we don't know how to hold on to it? I've done that with money several times. When you thought money was would solve everything in your world, and then you realize, oh, well, that didn't fix it all. Guilty. So, we had to become different people. And we're still in the process of that new start happening. Because, what looked like it was just laying out for us to get a house turned out that wasn't what the plan was either. The plan was we bought ourselves an amazing RV that looks like it was just built for me and my wife and our little dog while we are fixing up a house and basically learning how to save money and invest money and really, be strong and stable together in a marriage that, has lasted 17 years. And my gosh, we've been through so much. But you see, I had a choice in all of that. And to tell you that it was easy to outrun that identity of being angry, pissed off so the world didn't have to see me hurt, wasn't easy. There was also something I had to let go of too. I had to let go of the recovery platform that I had built and had gotten to know so many of you beautiful people like Tammy P. I love you the most. What's up, Joe? Love you, man. I had built this amazing thing with such an amazing community. And I had built this amazing identity that helped me so much. It was such a positive identity to start doing this type of ministry, if you will. To be able to share this with all of you all and share in your triumphs and our triumphs. It was so amazing. But I felt that I was being called away. Like I felt like I was being called to set this down because in the time that life was so, it had slipped over into something that was no longer just about giving of what I'd learned, I had also began to get my validation from this. And I didn't even realize it. I did not realize it. See, it goes back to when we give up substance, that ain't all that lives there. Substance is just a very small byproduct of much larger issues. And one of those issues is I didn't know my own value. And I needed all of you to help me know that I was successful today, that I mattered. And I did not even realize when it all had slipped over. And so I had to go through a huge process to be able to walk away from this. I mean, my gosh, in 2020, our platform, it was serving 40,000 people a day. I had never meant that much to that many people. Ever. Like, who wanted to listen to me talk? And so there was this process that I had to go through to have to honor some deeper healing that I was being called to pay attention to in my life, and give up this thing, this beautiful, amazing thing that we all built together. And I was so scared to do that, because then how was I going to feel valuable? How was I going to matter then? But I had learned enough to know that I had to trust this. And I had to move away from it. And so I'd have to, start going down to 2 or 3 times a week versus 6 days a week. And then I'd have to go down to 1 day a week. And then I just had to go away for a little while. And I felt like, I had just given enough that everyone had enough tools, and we had grown so much together that everybody would be okay. What's up, Big Jim? But I missed you all. No lie. I missed you so much. And I kept you in my prayers, and I kept you in my energy, because, man, talk about some of the most amazing human beings, recovery warriors on earth, were in my energy, in that space. And I felt your prayers as well. One of the things that made me feel so good, man, and I'm gonna give this out, because I feel too, is I never saw one rumor, not one rumor, that LC had relapsed. Do you know how amazing that made me feel? Because I had let so many people that began as virtual strangers, I had let you all so into my heart and in my space that I felt like in every time I pushed the live button, you were experiencing the real me at my core. And I was so honored that the rumor mill, or at least I never knew that it was, and never heard anything, but that the rumor mill didn't start up and people weren't starting to jab. They were jabbing me for other things, but it wasn't that. And that gave me such great just love. And I appreciate all of you all for continuing to see my authenticity as I see all of yours. It's an amazing, amazing life that I get to live. Again, I couldn't have designed it this way. But going through learning to value myself and to know that I had value apart from that, and to be able to reconnect with my wife that I love more than... I just love this woman. And she's probably the strongest woman I know. And to be able to be fully present with her as she came out of her darkest nights of the soul was just truly a gift. And it still is. I keep reminding her in everything that she's done and how transformed her life and her body and her mind is when she gets frustrated with herself, I keep reminding her that, babe, it was just January of 2020 that you began this entire mental health detox process. And, I didn't even transform that much in the first 2 years of my recovery. She's in her 5th year of recovery, but as most of you know, she was being way over medicated for mental health issues by unqualified doctors that were not treating the woman, the human being. They were just treating the symptoms. And she was basically just a shell of a human being. She could not function in the world. And if we were to hear her story of identity, that's what she identified with. I'm valueless. My son doesn't need me. My husband doesn't need me. I don't have anything that's mine. I don't have a coping skill. I've got all this hurt. I'm pained. So, you see, we're all swimming through identities that we have built around us or that have been built for us that we're still carrying the shame of. And so, that's what all of this is when we start talking about sharing things and the identities that we live around. But I just want you to know that so many of these identities that we hold can be positive. But when they start dragging us down, when we know we're supposed to let go and we don't, that's when suffering starts to exist. And in that time of knowing that I needed to let go of this platform, I dealt with the fear and the ego detox and all of that good stuff. I had to trust that I knew. I didn't see what was coming next. I didn't know if I'd ever be back here with you, to be honest. And that was hard for me for a long time. But when I came to the place of surrendering and truly understanding what faith was, then I knew I was in a place where I was walking in faith. We didn't know where we were going to live at that time. I was giving up the one thing that really helped me feel value. I was now connecting back with this woman that we were almost like two strangers again, but we shared that core of love. And there was just so much fear around, but I had that knowing that I was on the path I was supposed to be. And in my life came some of the most amazing human beings. Pamela Topjian was a huge part of coming into my life at that time and just really was there to help me navigate that energy. We did hypnotherapy together, and she's just a wise, human being that just could see and recognize in me what was happening and was there to remind me. So let me understand, our vibe attracts our tribe, and we need a supportive tribe. And we need, as we grow, we've got to have a tribe that grows with us, or sometimes we have to let some of those go. And again, we know when it is. When it begins to feel weight, and here's a little process that I do. When I want to think about an identity or a place in my life where I'm not sure if it's time to let go or what I'm feeling, I just close my eyes and I focus on that person, that relationship, that home, or whatever it is in your life. And I put my hand on my heart. And if I just sit there in just a few minutes and I kind of gauge what is that emotional feeling around the picture of this person, place, thing happening in my life. If it feels really heavy, then I know. And it's not always easy to just let it go. You don't just jump up from there and say, okay, I'm letting it go. Sometimes there are hard things. Sometimes there's easy things you can let go and move on. And there are other things that take a little bit longer. And that's okay. But for everything that you let go, please bless it and thank it for all that it's done in your life. Even the people and the relationships that we have been toxic, have been abusive, we have to learn to let those go in love, because even they gave us gifts. And even if we can't see the gifts right now in this moment, if we will stay in the mindset of walking in what true faith is, those blessings will be revealed. Those gifts will be revealed. And at some point, it'll make sense. But just knowing that it doesn't have to make sense for me to move forward. When we talked about last week, your value exists regardless of whatever that identity that we're building value in, or because of, or whatever. That is hard for a lot of us to grasp, but that is when we truly start to know who we are. And it's not about what we do that creates our value. It's about who we be. And as divine expressions of God in human form, there's value in that. And if you can't see past all the labels that you've placed on yourself or that have been placed on you right now, then hold on to that one thing, because you wouldn't be here if there wasn't still work for you to do. And if we stay, and this is a great thing, Alicia, I'm going to put this up. Been waiting for it to make sense for so long, it's getting tiring. That is a wonderful place for us to pick up right here, because we have to ask ourselves what we are energizing. Are we attached to wanting it to make sense? Because the more we get attached to the fact that it doesn't make sense, the further the carrot is out in front of us that we're chasing. And I learned this the hard way. See, we don't get what it is we say we want. We get who we are. Our life represents who we are. And sometimes we emotionally energize things that we think we're supposed to. Like, I hate debt. I don't want to be in this debt. I need more money. I need this. And we don't realize that we are just energizing debt, because that's what our emotion is wrapped into. And so, Alicia, this would be an amazing time for you to do that one exercise and feel the weight of wanting it to make sense so bad. Because wanting leads to just more wanting. Know that it makes sense. And as you change the way your thought process plants seeds of emotion within you, as you do those things, then your world begins to look different, and things that you needed to make sense all of a sudden do. It's not like sometimes they come and just slap you across the face and you go, oh! Many times it's very subtle, and we find those meanings when we get still. When we get still and quiet. See, there's so much distraction. Woo, look at that. That's just since we started. There's so much to distract us that we're training our brains to go 1 to 3 minutes with something, and on to something else, and on to something else, and on to something else. And before long, in 3 generations, the attention span's going to be even shorter than it was. But so many answers come in the silence. So many answers come when it's just you sitting within, the space of being you. And it's easy for us to get on autopilot. I mean, we have things like bills and jobs and all of that. And I have gotten to the place where I was so frustrated with my job. I wanted to be able to do this that I do with you all full time. So long that when I stepped away from doing all this, I had to step away from it because I had become so frustrated that that I wasn't able to do that. I didn't want to do the work that I was doing anymore. I didn't want to keep going in that way. And so I had to learn the lessons that I'm talking to you about right now. Right now. And I did that because somebody was willing to share with me what I'm sharing with you right now. And sometimes we all have a lot of yes men and women in our lives, people that will absolutely co-sign our bullshit just as soon as we lay it out there. But we always have to have at least that one person that is not afraid to say, I don't think you're on the right track right there. We need that person. They're valuable in our lives. And so I really had to learn that same thing. And so I had to start creating a new relationship with the work that I was doing, with my job. And I'll tell you, my job and my profession hasn't changed, but I love it. I love going to work. I love getting to do what I get to do. I love working with my body physically. I love what it produces in my world. I've learned how to be grateful for the abundance that is already within my life right now. I've learned how not to focus on the places that my body hurts so bad after that. I've learned to focus on all of the intricate ways my body works and how amazing of a creator we have that creates a body that does all of this stuff automatically. I don't have to plan a breath. I don't have to worry that there's not enough air in the world. I just breathe and I go about it, and there's this abundant amount of air. And it's amazing. And it sounds real hairy-fairy, and people go, that's just too foo-foo for me. But it works for me. And before I know it, when I sit in that energy, where I'm very grateful for all the things that are working in my world, the things that aren't so energized. And they basically kind of fall away, including the people fall away on their own. So I urge you today, wherever you are in your recovery, rediscovery process, because this is just a healing. Our humanity is calling out for healing right now. Less fighting, less chaos, more healing, more stillness. And if you saw the digital that I made for this, the intro for tonight, recovery community, we are the change. This is our life. We have to do this because we have our mode of escape can kill us. Just like that. We don't have time to play around. We gotta do this work. And when we do this work, we become an example to all of humanity on how to embrace and love one another because we share this common thing. We share this life-threatening choice that is available for all of us to make, but we share this. And in the healing process, we share that too. And the world is looking at us with the eyes of stigma that they've seen addiction and addicts with for so long. And they're seeing that, hey, wait a minute. This isn't what I thought it was. And these people aren't what I thought they were. And then they start asking you how you got so happy and satisfied in your life. How are you managing to go through this pandemic without going bonkers? How are you managing to stay so peaceful and calm in the storm of our political system? Our recession. How are you remaining so abundant in the face of a recession? And then you get to be the change. And I love you all. My gosh, I do. I do. Because when I tell you that for me to be sitting in this space blows my mind, because I grew up with an identity of confused, abused, weird, never gonna be happy, might as well just go out in a blaze of glory, can't do nothing, not successful, uneducated, the list goes on, to powerful, persistent, empowered, loving, strength in vulnerability, can speak to anyone, speaks to the public, and am absolutely happy with the human being that I am today, mind, body, and soul. I'm a divine expression of God in human form, and so are you. So if you don't know how valuable you are today, then just remember that. Write it on your mirror. Write it somewhere that you can see it all over your house. Make sure that you know how valuable you are today. And I don't care what your life looks like. I don't care if you're going to sleep on the park bench where you're holding this phone and you're watching this video right now. Hold on to the fact that you are here for a purpose and that you are valuable. Build an identity around that. Please. Yes, Patty B. I love you, Patty. Vogel, another one of my earth angels. Absolutely. Ask if one time if I had any regrets of what happened. I'm going to read this out because this is good. And I responded, nope, because it brought me to where I am right now. It's all about learning about me, good or bad, in my now life. I hope I have given hope and strength to all I have worked with. Good to see you, my dear friend, and I love you. And yes, you were a vital part of making me feel whole, comfortable, seen, and valuable on a daily basis. And I know that you were a blessing sprinkled into my life at exactly the time that I needed a blessing like you. And that goes to each and every one of you. I'm so grateful that you spent this time with me tonight. Everybody that is here, everybody that will watch this later. Oh, let me read this because this is my beautiful cousin. Do you think that change came about when you stopped listening to the constant noise coming from the outside and started examining yourself and listening to the voice within you? Yes. And I realized when I got still and started listening to the voice within me that most of the voices, that constant chatter, were other people. It was other people's ideas about who I was, who I wasn't, who I was supposed to be, and how badly I was failing at being that. And they weren't people that hated me. These were people that loved me. See, there's one thing that a lot of people, don't really know, and I'll share this because, Hunter will have firsthand knowledge of this. I had a beautiful set of grandparents that really set me on a trajectory of being in this push and pull kind of relationship with my mom. My mom was a young mother, teenage, 1974, deep South Alabama. A lot of things had to happen. And, there was this push-pull between us. And, my grandparents, as loving as they were, they had their ideas about what success was. Because what success meant for them should translate into what it should mean for me. So a lot of decisions were made for me. And what I learned in that decision making for me was that I couldn't trust my own voice. That I couldn't trust my own inner guidance, so to speak. And even in times when I tried to exert, this is what I want to do, it was always pushed down. No, that's never going to work. And then they would come along and they would take care of a problem in their way. And after a certain amount of time, I just gave up trying. I just gave up trying. And in doing that, that's where I developed that whole identity. And identity comes with a loud voice in its own chains, in a very small box of rules in which it allows you to live in. And so that all of that was born within. I can't trust myself. My voice doesn't matter. I'm not valuable because I cannot seem to get myself to do all these things that worked for everyone else or worked for them. And so there was just a devaluing that happened within me. And, my addictions and self-destructive behavior started very young. I started overeating. Food was my first addiction. When we start doing the inner work and we start listening to our inner voice, we start to realize that this addiction that we believed has taken our life in such a direction that brings us here. Once again, the gift that brings us here to this place of being able to hear our inner voice and follow our inner guidance. It usually has started somewhere else than the one thing we're able to see. It usually starts before the substance. And so, there is so much to all of this that it has to be a process. If we were able to just open the suitcase of our soul and throw everything out and just dump it straight out, then we wouldn't have a lot of the amazingness that keeps us where we are. I wouldn't trade any of that today. I spent too long in my life regretting it all, being angry that it happened, and in fact, gave myself to this dreadful, all in, addicted to substance disease because I felt like subconsciously I wanted them to see how they had hurt me, how not listening to me hurt me, how the abuse hurt me, how, and trust me, everybody in my family still to this day has their own opinions about me and how I turned out. And I used to be angry that they could make those assumptions without ever being there to witness or watch or question what was happening to us as little children. So anger was my identity for the longest time. And, today I see each and every one of those people in love. When we don't know, we don't know. We do the best we can. When we know, that's when it's time to do something different. And so I hope you've enjoyed this tonight. I love you all so much. I can't wait to sit and actually read your comments. There's some amazing, amazing, amazing people here tonight. It's just so many of you that have helped me just be the person, have sown into my life and helped me be who I am. I love you all so, so, so much. And when we quiet the chatterbox within our mind, we do that by getting still, undistracted, and just learning to listen to ourselves. Rita, happy being well. Y'all take care. To look for the Happy Being Well podcast. Shelly Martinez, I love you, chick. But Rita Ferrugia, NLP practitioner and just all-around badass, has the Happy Being Well podcast on iTunes and YouTube. Y'all check that out. She's amazing. I love you all so, so much. I could go on and say I love you for about 30 more minutes because I just hate turning this off. This has been an amazing night, and I thank you all for allowing me to have it and sharing your energy and sharing your space. And I pray that this week brings you amazing blessings. It brings you amazing opportunities to go within and find your value and break the chains of whatever identity is holding you down or holding you back in your life. If it feels heavy, start the letting go process. Thank it, love it, and open yourself for new opportunities. Remember, if I can get up from my give up and create a life I love, I promise you can too. So, one last thing before we go, I want to make this announcement. So we're coming up on the end of season 4. I'm going to do it the very last Saturday in December. And I'm going to have just a special all-out question and answer session. I kept trying to think of what guest I would bring back for the last episode, because season 5 is going to be in a much different way, and I can't wait to get creative again and just really come out and do some great stuff with Recovery Soul Food. But all of the guests have been so outstanding this season that I couldn't bring it to just one. So I got still and I got quiet, and then I shared this idea with a beautiful friend and a soul sister, and that's what we're going to do. So the last Saturday in December, live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 Pacific, is going to be a 1 hour long live question and answer session with me, Reverend LC. So y'all go ahead and start getting your questions. All I ask is that you just be respectful, but you can ask me anything, and I will share from my heart. If I feel led to, I will share. But get your questions ready. Whatever you want to know about, whatever you want to know about me personally, whatever you want to know about recovery process, or if you're going through something, put those things down. Show back up here everywhere that we are last Saturday in December, and bring me those questions and answers. And I love you. Until next week, I think we got Jason Rudine, Recovery Revolution Live co-host and the Way Out podcast creator and host, gonna be live with us next Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right back here. I love you. Until then, have an amazing week. Bye, guys.